Many of you know I'm a data-driven person. I try to, as volatile and emotional as crypto can be, I try to put aside that emotion and just look at the data, wait for certain things to happen, wait for triggers, confirmations, all that good stuff. This weekly chart on Bitcoin, I think, is offering a really, really solid area to be on the lookout and to simply wait to see what happens. And we have historical context to kind of play into that. And what's really cool about this and what we're going to go over in this video and kind of discuss the macro longer term, I don't want to call them concerns that I might have. The hourly chart, what's happening right now with Bitcoin is really going to help, I think, at least for me, as a guide in terms of what's next for Bitcoin. So let's just start here on the weekly chart. And I just want to show you what I'm looking at. Now, on the weekly chart, we have Bitcoin obviously has been in an uptrend since the low back here, November 2022. The biggest thing that has happened, and this is the confirmation area for me, this is what I'm waiting for. The biggest thing that has happened is Bitcoin is broken above this 20-week moving average. We saw support with a crazy wick on the weekly right back here in March, a nice bounce, consolidation back into that 20-week moving average in green, and the bounce off of that area. Now, there's one thing happening from a momentum perspective that has me just a bit, again, not concerned, but my eyebrows raised, and I'm just simply waiting. Zooming out on the weekly, and then we're going to go to the daily and the hourly to kind of talk about how this all ties together. It kind of threads the story together. If we zoom out, and I think this is an unpopular opinion of mine, but as we've come out of this bear market, it's a very similar move in terms of what happened out of the last bear market into this 2019 high. And that was also prior to the 2020 halving, and we are prior to the 2024 halving, even from a time frame perspective, a very similar area of time. Now, you know what happened. Bitcoin retraced, and then it started bouncing, and then COVID stepped in, right? We didn't anticipate that, obviously, but in general, it retraced. What happened during that retracement is the key area that I want to discuss, and then we'll tie in the short-term targets to discuss how this plays into it. But Bitcoin broke the 20-week moving average. Now, while that was happening, Bitcoin was also falling out of overbought area, right? And just falling back into just this consolidation of momentum. And you can see that here on the chart. Now, if we go look at Bitcoin right now, you can just see Bitcoin didn't get quite overbought like it did back there in 2019, but we kind of just right below that overbought area started consolidating. We get the bounce, and right now Bitcoin's putting in this kind of bearish looking divergence, and that's a concern. Now, that's only one indicator. That's only one thing happening, right? So we have to monitor now to see what happens at the really crucial trigger point. And for me, that is on this macro chart, as we tell the macro story of Bitcoin, it's the 20-week moving average around $27,100 or so. Now we start tying into, wow, the really messy charts. Here's the Bitcoin daily chart. We already know what has happened recently. Bitcoin broke out of this channel back here, hit the target very nicely. The one thing, before we look at the hourly and the really short-term targets, the one thing that's kind of surprised me is, as you know, I was anticipating the target being hit, and it's this confluent area, which is the target of that falling channel area, but also this recent resistance back here, the swing high in April. I was anticipating kind of this consolidation between that line and this upper trend line of this rising wedge. Bitcoin has not consolidated down to this area. So to give you an example or context for what that area is, $29,300. That's around $1,000 dip for Bitcoin right now. So that's some cushion of consolidation. Now, if we go to the hourly, though, this is what I think, and this is just me in the short term watching all of this develop in real time, because there's so many narratives going on right now, especially with all the ETF stuff, with Bitcoin dominance. There's a lot of bullish narrative. I'm very curious to see what direction this goes. On the hourly, though, this really ties it together. We have this falling channel once again on the very short term. This is a swing high from 5 days ago, and Bitcoin broke out of the upper trend line. Of no surprise, we get this throwback to the upper trend line, right? We didn't hit the target immediately around 31,500. That would be a new shorter term swing high. We threw back to the trend line, bounced off the trend line, And right now, Bitcoin's in this move, right? And you can even see on the very zoomed in. And I rarely even go to the hourly chart in general, let alone this consolidation. Bitcoin's in this move right now. And the question for me is, are we going to see another leg up to the target, 31,500? That's a $1,000 move to the upside. Or is Bitcoin going to fall back into the channel, and not only into the channel, fail support at the lower trend line and hit this target to the downside around 28,500? That's around a $2,000 dip from where Bitcoin is. Now, that is so important because when we start going to the daily and then the weekly, and that 20-week moving average we started talking about, when we start going to these charts, check this out. $28,500 target for Bitcoin on this daily chart is right around here. Now, if Bitcoin were to fall out of that channel on the shorter term, that would be Bitcoin basically being pulled into the 20-day moving average and the 50-day moving average, which, by the way, is no surprise, right? That is something Bitcoin just does all the time. It gets the overextension and it just pulls into these areas, right? Overextension pulls into the 20-day and the 50-day. So if we're getting the overextension again, pulling into the 20 and 50-day, it's something that is so common for Bitcoin. But where it becomes very crucial is the very fact that we will be falling back into the apex of this rising wedge on the macro. So falling back into the channel, we've already fallen back into it once, falling back into it again right at the apex. And if we go to that weekly chart, the 20-week moving average right around $27,100. So if Bitcoin on the daily, and there it is, $27,100. If Bitcoin on the daily is falling to these moving averages, right? And you can just see the 20 days around 27,800. But if it's falling namely to that $28,500 target, that would leave Bitcoin only around $1,000 away from the 20-week moving average. And that's as of now. This 20-week could get pulled into it a little bit more. So there could be a very, very small cushion of support for Bitcoin. And the main thing that I'm monitoring right now on this macro chart is, and who knows how this is going to play out in the next week, 2 weeks, what happens at that 20-week moving average? When Bitcoin got pulled into it back here, it was this move, this very crucial move falling below the 20-week moving average that led to kind of a midterm consolidation. It wasn't crazy long, right? As the halving was approaching. But I can't help but wonder, are we going to have kind of this consolidation? Because there's a lot of narratives that the bull market is basically starting right now. And for me, and a lot of other indicators that I haven't even talked about in this video, for me, we don't have that confirmation yet. We don't have that bull confirmation yet. If anything, in the shorter midterm charts and even just this RSI that we just talked about, there could be some warning signs just to look out for. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now with Bitcoin as it does consolidate on the short term, because that is truly what it's doing here on this hourly chart. The question will be, which direction is next, right? And that's why we track these shorter term charts sometimes. That's why we track the shorter term support areas, which are the daily moving averages. Keep in mind, if Bitcoin did make the move to the downside, that's not some macro bearish indicator or confirmation. We'd want to see support here. This would just be a higher low for Bitcoin, potentially for a continuation. And that would be something in play. Nobody knows what is going to happen next, but I track these charts on the short term, as many of you know, so I can just be prepared mentally, so I know what is going on, and also so I have a very clear picture, and we can go back to the weekly here, a very clear picture of the story that's unfolding before us. And not only just for Bitcoin, but this is a really clear picture, a roadmap, so to speak, for just cryptocurrency space in general and what is next for crypto cycles. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below, everybody. This is what I'm watching today. A little bit of the macro combined with a little bit of the very zoomed in. So it's going to be cool to see what Bitcoin does on the short term, to see if Bitcoin can diverge and start escaping that similarity that is in 2019 that we have on the Bitcoin charts all the way back here, this consolidation. Let's see if Bitcoin can diverge from that. So hit the subscribe, hit the like. I really appreciate all of you out there that have been following along. Your support really is awesome, and it means a lot to me. So I'll see you in the next video. God bless.